Hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name's Robert, and I'm going to be talking about a brief history of the black community in America. So in 2016, a study came out of homicides by race, and we found that the black homicide rate was 22.8 per 100,000 individuals. The same year in 2016, the white and Hispanic homicide rate was 8.2 per 100,000 individuals. If you combine all races in America, the average homicide rate in 2016 was 6.2 per 100,000 individuals. This means that in America, you are almost four times, more likely to be a victim of homicide than if you are black rather than any other race. So how did we get here? What happened in the past? What events sparked the present outcome of today? What happened to get us to the point where this is the truth that we live with, where in 2016 you're four times more likely to be a victim of homicide if you're black? I'm going to go over a very brief history of some key points in time for the black community here in America, and I will explain what we need to do to help the black community. So the tale of blacks in America has been a story of extreme tragedy and extreme triumph. In the early 1900s, only 45 years after the Civil War, blacks were succeeding in businesses and entrepreneurship roles throughout their community and the entire country. Arguably, at this time, blacks were growing wealth at an unproportionately high rate compared to their white counterparts. Now, this was obviously not an amazing time for blacks in America, but it shows the point that blacks in America were able to rise at a steady, equal rate with their white counterparts. They were succeeding in their new roles that they paved in America. They were becoming doctors and lawyers and training their children to become successful Americans. This sparked outrage in poor white communities that encircled the wealthier black communities. This sparked outrage particularly in outlying areas around Tulsa, Oklahoma. During a 2-day period in 1921, 300 middle to upper class black individuals were murdered. More than 10,000 were left homeless, and 40 square blocks were entirely burnt down. This was an occurrence that was not isolated to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or was it isolated to the year of 1921. And it cannot be argued that these types of events did not have a negative impact on the financial growth and well-being of black communities today. We also have situations where the American government itself has taken advantage of the lack of access to education, resources, and wealth in America. They did this to run detrimental experiments on the black community. According to a paper by Harold Edgar from 1992, since 1932, the United States Public Health Service had maintained a study of untreated syphilis in the black male that was still going on in the 1970s. That 40-year study continued monitoring black men who were suffering from syphilis, even though it was proven in the late 20s that penicillin was a cure for the disease. These men and women were preyed upon by the research group that was supposed to oversee the help of poor communities. This type of treatment to blacks in America was not isolated to this incident, nor was it isolated to this time frame. In 1979, Needleman et al. Published a paper that pinpointed the consequences of lead exposure for children's psychological, behavioral, and cognitive development. We have understood the research and harm of lead exposure to young children since at least this time. And while the exposure to whites and Hispanics declined rapidly and steadily since then, the prevalence of blood lead levels above the consequential negative limit were still found in black communities and black children in 1994. And these levels were on average twice as high as Hispanics and whites combined. And this is according to a Robert J. Sampson paper called The Racial Ecology of Lead Poisoning. So from a purely psychological standpoint, only talking about development, we understand the negative impacts and effects that lead has on childhood development, and we also understand that in poor black areas, like in Chicago, the number of children with unacceptable blood lead levels are higher than anywhere else in the country. So the question is, what can we do? How can we help Black Americans? So we also know through our studies of psychology and development that we have the ability to alter the way any child reacts or has reacted to negative stimuli in their early development. So we know that through positive connections and interactions that are made with role models in their community today, children can create new pathways and alter old pathways to reduce their risk-seeking behavior that we know leads to negative consequences like high community homicide rate. So through positive interactions, through positive companies who are able to supply individuals back into the community, we are able to give children who would not have these positive interactions, we're able to give them these positive interactions and allow them to alter the stimuli or alter their reaction to stimuli early on in their life. So that is why I'm asking everyone today who wants to help these communities, these American communities, get out your phones, go to 100blackmen.org, and donate whatever you can or volunteer today. Thank you for my time.